Mark, welcome. You are my first guest on the Fast Five.
I'm honored. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll get right into it. So, what stood out to you the first time our paths crossed?
Well, I I'd like to say, it was the the charm and interesting conversation that we had, and it was just like, wow, sparks flying, and it was all of those things. But I'll tell you, the thing that I remember to this day, I don't remember a single thing that we talked about, but I distinctly remember the way I felt after we talked, and I remember having so much energy and feeling like anything was possible and just going, I want like to have this type of energy as often as I possibly can because it raised me up many, many levels. And I was just like, and every once in a while now, anytime I'm feeling like I'm a little bit like, this is kind of hard, I'm not sure. I'm just like, I say, Liz, what are you doing? And she says, let's get together. And I say, yes. And then we do. And I feel awesome afterwards. So it's really, really great.
Awesome. Thank you. That makes me feel really good. It's funny that you say that. What I remember from the first time we chatted was that you were just so curious. Like you were so interested in the things that I was interested in. And I had no idea if they actually interested you, but it
Absolutely.
did
I
in the
learned, I learned,
moment.
things, I learned things. It's always like going to hang out with Professor Liz because I always learn new things every time I talk to you. It's so cool.
But it's your curiosity. I loved your curiosity and the excitement that you had for things that I found exciting.
Awesome.
And it's something I really appreciate because when someone comes to you with something that they're excited about and you reflect excitement back to them, it's so affirming and energizing. And I think the energy just it builds and it grows.
I
So,
love it. So
me
cool.
too. All right. So, you are an incredibly impressive individual and you can get that from your LinkedIn profile and your bio. I'm curious, what's something that you want people to know about you beyond that?
So obviously it's important to have pursuits outside of your professional realm. And so one of the things that I do to kind of keep myself balanced is I track online auctions for various kinds of artifacts. And I track very specific keywords and get really excited when certain pieces will come on the market. And I constantly am learning about new cultures and new variations on those cultures and discovering one. It's like it's like a rabbit hole that you can go down. You know, an online auction house that will help you track search keywords plus chat gpt is, that's a full-time job if you let it. It's just amazing. So the thing that's making me the most happy right now is tracking a culture from Guerrero, Mexico, called the Mezcala. The Mezcala have these, I guess they call them axe gods, but they're not really. They're these stone men and women, although women only account for about 2% of them that are generally found in burial sites. And they're very, very minimally abstract versions of men. And they look a little bit like the Easter Island megaliths. And then they also kind of remind me of the Cyclitic gods that you make, those marble little abstract figures that are just so, so beautiful. These are like the Cyclitic gods of the new world. Hold on, I'll show you. Alright, this one is the hero. Okay. So on a really bad stand, but they look like this. Okay. So that's one. This is my largest one that I have as of right now, and it's a very, very rare female.
I see what you mean. I see the reference to the Cyclades. Yes.
Yes, and maybe a little bit of the Easter Island. You see the little
Mhm.
island going in there? You see?
Similar to the tikis. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I find these guys to be so cool looking, and and learning more about them and their intersection with the Olmecs. And there's another civilization called the Shunpao. that are kind of adjacent to those guys and how they all interacted, and then seeing how some of these very, very abstract forms get translated into things like, or connected in my brain at least, to some of my favorite sculptors like Brancusi. And just it's a very fun, cool little thing.
That's awesome. I love the way that art has just weaved itself into everything that you have done and that you continue to do. There's this deeply creative side, as well as I know from our conversations, a very strong analytic bent, but it's seeing the two of them come together and the creativity and the analytic and the right and the left brain.
I blame my parents for this. My mother was an artist and art teacher, and my father was a business guy, economics guy. So, and I luckily found myself with both sides of that equation, and I can jump back and forth with them, which is one of the reasons why I found marketing and advertising to be such an attractive initial career path, was because I found that a place where I could be a bridge in between the world of business and problem solving and creativity, and working with creative directors and coming up with really, really outside the box, crazy ideas that would help solve business problems. And so I've always tried to be this bridge between those two worlds because I could speak both. And then that helped me really well when, so that started in 1993, but when we started working in with web and digital marketing, I found I could speak developer as well. So speaking creative director and developer and business became useful for me in my career path.
Like C3PO. So, Mark, what is a book, an idea? Like, what's something that's influencing and shaping your thinking right now?
Well, first of all, I have to go back to C3PO for a second because my wife is French. And so it's every once in a while we'll have conversations about pop culture things that gets translated over into France. And and she referred to C3PO the other day as say toi peo. And I was like, say toi peo? Say, say toi peo? Are you for real right now? That's his name. I'm like, oh man, that's amazing. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the aside. All right, let's back to the things that I find inspiring. Well, okay. So this is super relevant to both you and I think I was recently introduced to a book called Play Bigger, and by the ex creative director for Sprinkler named Jan Zlatnik, and the guy I super admire. He was encouraging me not to focus exclusively on marketing my product as a product, but to think of a space, a category that we were creating because it's such an innovative idea, and to really focus on establishing and owning a category. And so that's what Play Bigger is basically a framework for how to think through the definition and ownership of that category. It doesn't apply for every brand, but in certain situations, it could be a very, very powerful go to market. But you act in a very specific way, knowing that promoting that category, not just the product itself, and then but positioning the product as the kind of leader in that space is a really great, a more powerful position than just trying to promote, hey, this is what my product does. It's kind of weird, and it's but let's try it. So I found that to be very, very powerful thinking, and I tried to share that with some of my friends who are also in very innovative entrepreneurial pursuits. And so it's something that I think is very valuable, and I'm trying to internalize.
Well, and I've been a recipient of that, so thank you. And this just kind of blends seamlessly into the next question I had for you, which is what's a project that you're excited about right now?
So in 2019, I was introduced to a concept of collective intelligence, which in a world of artificial intelligence, collective intelligence seems very low tech and not that interesting. But I didn't even know what it was. And so I found out that it's the research field around the study of how scalable groups of people can work together to solve complex problems. And I was really attracted to this idea and the key principles behind this that have come out of this field of research. And I found that there were a lot of people that were focused on translating those principles into things like citizen engagement at a government level, at a large NGO level. But there really weren't a lot of people, especially particularly in the States, that were focused on bringing those principles into the world of business. And so I started talking to the MIT Center of Collective Intelligence of creating a for-profit lab called HiveWise to actually focus on that charter. And so that's been the project that I've been working on since 2020. And the software product that we just come out with, Washi, is the first SaaS product that's come out of that 5 years of working with for-profit organizations and commercial organizations, primarily in the United States, but also in Asia and in Europe, trying to adapt and find ways of making it easier and easier for work teams and organizations of various sizes to be able to take advantage of these very proven best practices.
Hmm. So, last question.
Mm.
Who do you want to talk to most right now?
I would say two different groups. Can I say two different groups?
It's
So
just like Law and Order. Two separate yet equally important.
two separate but equally important groups. One are leaders who are very interested in proving that participative and transparent leadership styles can really, really work. One of the aha moments I've had even in the last couple of years has been, especially reflecting on my own career, was that there's a big gap between decision making and leadership. I thought, given all of the models that I had before in my career, was that the hardest part of a leader's job is making a decision and figuring out what that company needs to do or what needs to happen because you're presented with so many problems that once you make the decision, basically the other part is just, hey, everybody, follow me. And because, I have, I'm the boss, so follow me, right? I I came to realize after my company got acquired by a much bigger company, I was in this thing called a matrix organization where everybody had two bosses. And this whole idea of follow me didn't work anymore because I wasn't the only boss. They had another boss that they could. So I actually was in a position where I needed to convince people, influence people to actually do things, not just figure out what needed to be done. And I had zero skills at that. No, I was horrible at that. It was the only job I've ever been fired from in my entire life. And I had to spend a lot of time thinking, why was I so bad at that? What was I doing wrong? And one of the things that I've really, really realized is that decision making for some managers, that's the easy part. Okay. The hard part is communicating that decision or making that decision in a way where people want to follow that and will execute that. If you have a strong enough power dynamic, you can get people to not be overly loud about pushing back on a decision. Okay. But that does not mean that they're supporting that decision and aren't going to at least add dragging friction to the execution, if not outright make it more difficult. Okay. So what I realize is the real leadership, the decision is only a small percentage of the real goal, which is getting things done, making that change happen. And that requires alignment of a lot of key stakeholders. And so one of the things that I'm excited about with the Washi project is that it makes it a lot easier for leaders to lead teams that work together to make decisions in a way that even if if as a team member, I disagree with the final decision, it's a lot easier for me to align and support that because I was heard and I have trust in that process. Okay. So, and I'm looking for leaders who want to show that there is an alternative to the top down authoritative leadership model and that we can make case studies of how that can happen at scale using some really, really great and innovative tooling. Because I would like to make heroes of that because I want that to become the 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 more of the norm than the exception as much as possible. Okay, so that's one. The other is that there was a very smart person that I was talking to who looked at the Washi project and said, "Hey, this is a change management tool." Whatever that was. And
Who might
proceed
that have been?
exactly, and it proceeded to give me my crash course 101 in what change management actually is. And a lot of things that we just touched on in terms of having people have a voice in key changes and understanding the why and the process of how and why those changes are being made makes it a lot easier for them to support those changes, even in situations where they themselves are not going to be direct beneficiaries of 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 everything that's great about that change. And so I would love to work with some people who are experts in the change management field, change management consultants, to kind of review what we're doing and see if this is as applicable to that world as possible. And again, to create some hero case studies of how we can accelerate and make a lot easier this concept of managing change. One of the things that Liz, that you had brought up was that there's a fallacy that humans are naturally resistant to change, right? And we aren't necessarily resistant to change. And one of the things you brought up was that we spend a huge amount of our early lives actually trying to change, waiting and being very like, I can't wait for things to change. And so I would like to see if the things that we're working on right now actually make it easier for people to feel connected to change as opposed to having change foisted upon them. And so either of those two groups would be really, really great because I think we could do some really great things together.
So, group number one, transformational, collaborative leaders who are looking for new ideas and tools that can help them to lead groups and even themselves better.
Yes, exactly.
And group two, people who have experience in, interest in, knowledge about change management, who might be able to take those lenses and look through them into what you're doing with Washi and see how might we do this better.
And for both of those groups, I'm fascinated with both of them completely apart from Washi as well. Like I would just have, I love getting to meet cool inspirational leaders, and I'm really fascinated in learning more about change management. So even if we just talk about those things and I learn from more from them from that perspective, that would be great. And even better if we get to find ways that Washi can add value into that into those conversations.
Well, I will give a think about who it is that I could introduce you to and have some of those conversations. And the purpose of putting this chat out into the world is so people I'm connected to and the people they're connected to can hear it. And, well, y'all, if this sounds like you, get in touch with Mark. Get in touch with me, and I'll get you in touch with Mark. It's impossible to know enough generous, empathetic, excellent, and kind people. And Mark, you're certainly one of them. So thank you, one, for your bravery and courage in being my first 5 fast questions that are not, in fact, fast guest, and for, well, being my friend. You're a really good friend. And I appreciate you for all the things that you do and for just showing up as you and being willing to come into this space where I also have no idea what I'm doing either and figure it out together. So in the spirit of figuring things out together, let's go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.